We have another piece of evidence that Lucasfilm has absolutely no idea what they're doing, and there's multiple narratives now coming out about the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. This most recent narrative is coming from Deborah Chow. She is claiming that the storyline of Kenobi going to rescue Princess Leia had already been developed before she joined the show. This comes after Ewan McGregor actually admitted that the original idea was that he would be going off on some kind of journey or adventure with Luke Skywalker. So, Deborah Chow was speaking with The Hollywood Reporter's Brian Davids about the Star Wars series. Brian Davids asked her, the greatest example of their being more to Obi-Wan's story is the involvement of 10-year-old Leia Organa, played by Vivian Lyra Blair, in the series. How did this big swing happen? She responded, before I came onto the project, it was something that they had already developed. There was a lot of discussion about it, and we didn't know how the fan base would react and if they'd say that we were breaking canon. So the big part there is that she's saying that it was before I came onto the project. It was something that they had already developed. I've already kind of talked about the idea that they were breaking canon. The whole show breaks canon. It's an absolutely abomination. And I talked about that in a video yesterday. If you want to watch that, you can do that. You can find that on the channel. Nevertheless, I just want to finish her answer here, which we did cover yesterday. But she says it's tricky because on some level everything could be perceived as breaking canon, but you have to take some swings. It is. The entire show breaks canon. There was also nothing that said they hadn't met before, so we did. There's lots of that. I already covered that. The whole, the entire message that she sends to Obi-Wan Kenobi is evidence that they did not meet before. So we did obviously take some license, but we tried to hook it back into A New Hope to at least connect the two. But I really want to focus in on that first sentence there. Before I came onto the project, it was something that they had already developed. So she's saying that they already had this idea that Obi-Wan Kenobi was going to go find Princess Leia before Deborah Chow even got into the show. And I think she's actually trying to deflect blame from how absolutely terrible this show is. I think that's exactly what she's trying to do. It wasn't my idea. I didn't come up with this idea. It was already there before I came on and directed my episodes. I'm just the director. I didn't really do a lot of this stuff with the story, right? We did have discussions about canon and everything, but this main breaking, big, huge plot, canon breaking plot point, I didn't actually come up with that. That's what she's trying to say here, in my opinion. And I think it's a load of bunk. Let's get into this. Because we had Ewan McGregor. He revealed at Fan Expo Boston last August that the original idea for the series was, quote, going to be a story about Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke. He said it was always going to be that, and that was one of the genius moments where everyone went, wait a minute, and then changed it. It was absolutely terrible. That was not a genius moment. That's an absolutely stupid, idiotic, dumb moment. You shouldn't have changed it. If you were going to be doing something with Obi-Wan Kenobi, it should have been with Luke Skywalker, and it should have been on Tatooine, because Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't leave Tatooine. But that seems what maybe they had that idea, right? Maybe that was their idea because they knew that was actually what happens in Star Wars. There was actually some sane people that thought that. But we know that there was absolutely a ton of crazy changes happening at Star Wars. And I think Deborah Chow is full of crap. Because if we look at this timeline here, we get the actual Obi-Wan Kenobi announcement at D23 Expo in 2019. And we have Kathleen Kennedy saying, we are really close. We have all the scripts written. We are ready to start shooting next year. We cannot be more excited. Can't wait to start production. Chow was announced as the series director a month later in September 2019, with the official Star Wars website noting Deborah Chow has been tapped to direct the new Obi-Wan Kenobi series that is exclusively for Disney+. Ewan McGregor will be reprising his role as Obi-Wan Kenobi for the series, which takes place 8 years after the events of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. Kennedy then said, we really wanted to select a director who was able to explore both the quiet, determination, and rich mystique of Obi-Wan in a way that folds seamlessly into the Star Wars saga. Based on her phenomenal work developing our characters in The Mandalorian, I'm absolutely confident Deborah is the right director to tell this story. And I actually think Deborah Chow did direct the best episode of the first season of The Mandalorian. It's like the infiltration episode where he actually goes and rescues Grogu from the Empire. I actually thought that was really well directed, and it was probably the most interesting episode of all of the episodes in The Mandalorian that they've done all together. So I will give her credit for that. But again, that's probably Favreau wrote that, but she did direct it, did a really good job doing that. Whether or not she had any input on how it was actually scripted out or anything like that is a different story. But so she was hired a month later, or they announced her hiring a month after they had announced the show. And Kennedy said they had all of the scripts. So it would make sense then that Leia idea was already baked in before they hired Deborah Chow, right? That seems to line up. But wait, 5 months after the original show's announcement at D23, we get this report from Collider. The Obi-Wan series has been put on hold as the crew that had assembled at Pinewood Studios was sent home. That report would be corroborated by The Hollywood Reporter, who also said that, yes, the show had been put on hold and the crew had been dismissed and they were going to be filming it sometime in the future. The Hollywood Reporter also noted, though, that the scripts for the series were not actually written and Lucasfilm planned to rewrite the entire series. The Hollywood Reporter said this: sources tell THR that the scripts, only 2 are written, and story became an issue and that the entire package has been jettisoned. Lucasfilm is now on the hunt for a new writer to pen the series. At the same time, sources say the project is being reconfigured from 6 episodes to 4. Obi-Wan Kenobi would eventually remain a 6-episode miniseries. If you watched it, you know that there are 6 episodes. The THR report also noted that the reason the script needed a rewrite was because it was believed to be too similar to The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan Kenobi taking a young Luke Skywalker and possibly a young Leia under his wing in a fashion similar to how Din Djarin took Grogu as his ward. We would get, so that's what they're saying. They're saying they had to rewrite the entire scripts, right? So that would mean that Deborah Chow was heavily involved in the script writing of the Leia storyline, and that hadn't been done beforehand. But we got this information here from McGregor. He actually responded to these reports. He said he confirmed that it was getting delayed. He said it's just slid to next year. That's all. The scripts were really good. But he goes on and says this: I think now that episode 9 came out and everyone at Lucasfilm's got more time to spend on the writing, they felt like they wanted more time to spend on the writing. So indeed, they were working on the scripts. It sounds like they're spending more time on the writing. But he catches himself here. He says, I've read about 80-90% of what they've written so far, and it's really, really good. But they're changing. Remember, they're changing the writing, though. He already said that. So it doesn't matter what he read beforehand. It was being changed. So he said, instead of shooting this August, they just want to start shooting in January. That's all. Nothing more dramatic than that. It often happens in projects. They just wanted to push it to next year. But he said the reason why they wanted to push it to next year isn't just because they wanted to shoot in August. They wanted to shoot in January. It's because they wanted to spend more time on writing. Remember, he said that. He did note that the unannounced release date would remain unchanged. It will have the same release date. I don't think it will affect the release date. They're still shooting towards having the film show release when it was going to be originally. He then disputed the whole idea of it being truncated down to 6. He said he hadn't heard anything about that. So I do think McGregor's comments do indeed show, if you believe him, that they were indeed rewriting some of the scripts, working on them. Whether or not that's changing the Leia storyline is another question, right? But there is a question there now, right? Did they indeed change the Leia storyline in production? Or was it always there? So there's a lot of questions here. As viewers of the series would eventually find out, the scripts were crap and the entire series was mediocre at best. So McGregor better hope that what he read wasn't actually what they actually brought to the screen, because they were absolute garbage. Even Leia actress Vivian Lyra Blair questioned the poor scripts during the Obi-Wan Kenobi panel at Star Wars Celebration 2023 in April. She said, I remember the scene where I was in the coat. I was inside the Imperial officer's coat, and I kept poking my head out to look around at the set. And he kept trying to push me back in, speaking to Ewan, about Ewan. And it was really funny. I kept just saying, how is anyone believing that this random lump inside this guy's coat is just normal? How is this happening? But it was a lot of fun. Yeah, no one believed it. It was utterly garbage. It takes you out of the immersion of the show, and you realize that what you're watching is absolute garbage. There's just one of many, many moments that show did that. But what do you make of this? Do you think that this is, I think this is just more evidence that Lucasfilm has absolutely no clue what they're doing. We've got all of these different narratives. They're changing things mid-production. They're rewriting stuff when they should be already on set. Like, what is going on over here? What do you think is going on? Do you think that Deborah Chow was trying to deflect blame, that whole plot wasn't part of any of her actual creative ideas? It was already done before she got there. She was just kind of the director and moved forward with it. Do you think that she was heavily involved in it and worked on those rewrites and did that? Well, what do you make of this here? And does it even really matter, because you're just going to laugh at how just absolutely garbage the Lucasfilm stories are and their production is as well. So it shouldn't really be a surprise that the product they're putting out is crap when they have such an absolutely chaotic production.
Subscribe for more.